CityView, I don't want to just build a building for the sake of building a building. I think God's called us to build a refuge and an epicenter, a place where the gospel disturbs Pearland, where people are changed by the good news of who Jesus is and what he's done.
CityView's next step, that we would raise $600,000 over the next 3 years. This doesn't happen without us all stacking hands and saying, yeah.
Hey, this is Kerry Perrin from CityView Alvin. It wasn't too long ago that I went from being the associate pastor at CityView Pearland to being the first church plant CityView Pearland ever sent out down here in Alvin. And we've had a different context than Pearland over here. We've got a town that's filled with not so many people who are transplants from other places, but people who've grown up here their entire lives. And so one of the obstacles we've had to deal with is earning a community's trust that is as tight-knit as a community can be, as Alvin is. And so we were fortunate in weird ways. When bad things happened to the community, we got to be some of the first responders. Like when Harvey hit, none of our church people had homes that were damaged, and so we were able to be the first people out delivering food to homes that were hit and devastated badly. We were able to be kind of the first people on the ground when Santa Fe High School got attacked, and we were able to go minister over to those Christians over there to help them get ready for what they had to deal with. And so because of these really sad and awful things happening around our community, our God has used us in a weird way to kind of be a quick healing hand in those tough moments. And one of the ways we're able to do that is we just happen to be in the middle of town, in the most popular building in town, and it's a building that's been here since the town's been around. So because we have this little epicenter in Alvin at the movie theater, we're just kind of known to always be there ready to go when something happens. And so one of the things that I hope and pray for with this building in Pearland is once it's built, Pearland will now have a church that they can look to that they know is not going anywhere anytime soon. That they know is a part of them, is a part of their neighborhood, is a part of just their culture. And so to have a place like that in that part of Pearland, where there really hasn't been a lot of gospel-centered churches nailed down and rooted in there, is going to make a big difference, especially for how CityView wants to reach its community wherever it's planted. It's in the name. We're churches that are in view of the city. And so we care about what's going on in the city around us. And so CityView, you need a place to where you can set your lighthouse out and you can be watching for what the community needs, and you can be ready to go and take care of people when hard things happen.
That's Kerry. He was our first church plant that we sent out. We love Kerry, miss Kerry. Be praying for Kerry. They had 4 of their key families. They moved out of Alvin. They moved out of state, took other jobs, had other stuff to do. So they've had to kind of reboot their church in the last little while. They're doing great. They're growing again. Be praying for Kerry. And what he said there is just so true. Like our hope in terms of what we're going to build. Why are we going to build? Why are we working towards this? It's not just to have some walls up that say, hey, now we don't have to do setup and tear down anymore, although that'd be great. The point is that we want to be in our community long term. That our church would be a presence here, that's a refuge, that's an epicenter for what we're doing in terms of the gospel. That's what this series is for. That's why we're talking about it. That's why we're building towards this Commitment Sunday on March 3rd. That's why we're pushing that way, thinking that way, talking that way. Not hopefully you're not hearing we want to build for the sake of a building, but you're hearing that we are doing this for the sake of the gospel. Acts chapter 2 is where we're going to be today. So we've been in this series on Acts, and as we're doing Acts, we're going to do this all spring long, but we've been kind of zeroing in a little bit on these first few weeks of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to read some scripture, we're going to kind of explain the scripture, then I'm going to come back and make some points, and then we're going to be done. Here it is, chapter 2, verse 1. When the day of Pentecost arrived, so Pentecost. Pentecost is this special day. It's a feasting day. It's a day where they're excited over some things that God has delivered. This is an ancient Hebrew day, ancient Jewish day that dates back into Leviticus chapter 25 if you want to get some reference on it. And it occurs 50 days after the Passover. So Jesus died the night of the Passover, right? Jesus died on a cross that night. We call it the Lord's Supper. It was the Passover meal. They were taking that in that night, and then Jesus dies. 50 days later is this Pentecost day. This is a big day. They are all together in one place. So who's the all? The all are the people. The all are the disciples, those people who have followed Jesus, and now they are gathering together. Remember the first week, they were all gathered together. They were watching Jesus go into heaven like Superman. Then the next week, last week, they gathered together, and they appointed a new apostle. And then verse 2, it goes like this. They were all together in one place, and suddenly there came from heaven a sound like a mighty rushing wind, and it filled the entire house where they were sitting. So they're in a house. They're in a room, and wind comes in. Not just like a little breeze, not like something small or tiny, but something large, something powerful, a gigantic gust. Verse 3, and divided tongues as of fire appeared to them and rested on each of them. And they were filled with the Holy Spirit and began to speak in other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. So here's what's going on. They're in a room, maybe like this room, probably smaller than this room, and the breeze comes up. And as the breeze comes up, it's a giant breeze. It pushes the doors open. And then as this wind is there, now there's tongues. So what kind of tongues? Like, it probably looked like your tongue. This mic is driving me crazy today. Probably look like a tongue over someone's head. They're just trying to describe what it is. And it's a tongue of fire. So that's weird, right? Have anybody ever seen a tongue of fire over anybody else's head? We'll just confirm that this is not a normal occurrence. Yes? Anybody out there? 1? No? 0. Never happened before, never happened since. All of a sudden there is tongues of fire over these guys' heads. And ladies' heads. It's there. They've got a tongue of fire over their head. Anybody else? That suddenly happens here. How are we feeling about that? We excited? We scared? Wet in our pants? What's going on? We don't know. I'd be afraid. What's happening? But all of a sudden they're talking. And as they're talking in this word tongues. Now some of our charismatic brothers kind of get this off, and they move it into this private prayer language, that a thing that they say, well, the apostles did it in the early days. Well, what actually happens here is they're speaking, and they're speaking actual languages. But remember, this isn't the best of the best. This isn't the varsity. These aren't the AP kids. This isn't the PhD student. This isn't the master's degree. These are the guys who are fishermen from Galilee. They were not the brightest of the bright. They were not the best of the best. They were the junior high B team, and they sat the bench. That's who these guys were. And all of a sudden, these guys with 0 training, 0 language ability, zero background in the subject. They never had immersion. They didn't have Rosetta Stone. They didn't have any of that stuff. All of a sudden, they're able to speak. They're able to speak in languages that they've never learned. Verse 5. Now there were dwelling in Jerusalem, so that's the city they're in, Jews, devout men from every nation under heaven. And at the sound, so that's what happened to disciples. And the sound, everybody hears the sound. It's not just a thing that happened just for the guys in the upper room. It was something that happened even further. Verse 6, and at the sound, the multitude came together, and they were bewildered, because each one was hearing them speak in his own language. And they were amazed and astonished, saying, are not all these who are speaking Galileans? So there's a little latent racism going on here. These guys are from Galilee. Ugh, they aren't the brightest. They can catch some fish, but they don't know much. They live there. How is it that they're able to speak? Verse 8. And how is it that we hear each of us in his own native language? Now you're going to see this list. We're looking at this list in verse 9 and on, and it's going to be like a who's who of those who are far from God, those who have no hearing, no opportunity to hear. And here it is, verse 9. It goes like this: Parthians and Medes, Elamites, residents of Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, Egypt, and the parts of Libya belonging to Cyrene, and visitors from Rome, both Jews and proselytes, Cretans and Arabians. We hear them telling in our own tongues the mighty works of God. I want to show you a map real fast, just to give you an idea of where this is happening, how this is happening. The center of that map is Jerusalem. That's where it's happening at. That's what's going on there. And these people they just named, they're coming from all over the known globe. They're all in Jerusalem this day. They all happen to be there this day. They all happen to be here hearing the gospel of Jesus declared this day. They are literally from everywhere. And then there's this group, they said it kind of at the end there, the Cretans and the Arabians. And this is a group of people who are far from God. They don't know who God is. They don't know much about God. And then these Cretans, they say some interesting things about themselves. Like the Cretans were actually terrible humans. Like they were terrible people. And you say, Jason, that's really unfair to say. That's not kind. Well, they actually said it about themselves. So in Titus, like there's this little quote there where Paul is talking about the Cretans. And when he's talking about them, he says they are all liars. They're, as their own poets say. So under their own testimony, they're like saying, we all lie constantly. Don't trust us. And you've probably heard the term Cretan, correct? I mean, like they're a Cretan, terrible Cretan. Maybe a little antiquated at this point. But these are the people from all over the known world at that point who are hearing the good news of Jesus declared in their own language miraculously. I mean, these guys are walking out of the upper room there, and they've got flames of fire over their heads. Like walking downstairs, outdoors, and saying, this is who Jesus is and what he's done. Going all over the city, declaring it. Flames of fire, language they've never learned before. God's miraculous work in a specific place at a specific time. God was doing it. Let's keep walking through the text here. Verse 12, and all were amazed and perplexed, right? Right? I mean, just think about it. Like you go to Italy. You go to Italy, and then all of a sudden, I don't speak a word of Italian, you know, because I'm educated. So you go there, and then all of a sudden, I don't speak anything, but then they start talking to me in English. Boom, that's crazy. I'm astonished. Have they ever learned English before? No, never learned English before. Well, now they're talking. Now I understand them. That's crazy. They're all amazed and perplexed, saying to one another, what does this mean? But others mocking said, they are filled with new wine. They're drunk. Somehow, alcohol gives the opportunity for people to speak languages they didn't know before. Who knew? It's this interesting moment in history. And what we're going to see next week is Peter, like Peter's specific message, where he starts sharing the gospel. And that day, 3,000 people trust in Christ. But this is that moment where the Spirit falls. And let me just be real clear. Like, as believers in Jesus, the moment you trust in Jesus, the Spirit falls on you. There isn't a second filling. There isn't like get saved, get baptized, and get baptized by the Holy Spirit. That's not how it works. The moment that you trust Christ, you have the Spirit of Christ in you. This was an interesting time in history where Jesus had said, wait for the Spirit to come. It's going to come on a specific day. Pentecost Day was the day the Spirit fell. The day you trusted Jesus, the Spirit fell on you. And now you are empowered to do work, good works. You've been created in an image to do good works that God created beforehand. This is the beginning of our movement here. We saw Jesus in the Gospels. Jesus did amazing things in the Gospels. But what the book of Acts is the first book of church history. So history is boring, right? I sat in a history of civilization class with 250 other freshmen when I was in college, and it was the most boring thing I've ever sat in. I had a professor, his name was Dr. Panosian, and it didn't help that his nose was also quite large. Dr. Big Nose Panosian, and he had a Mercedes that had 600,000 miles on it. It was amazing. And you're like, that's a lie. No, I got in the car. It had 600,000 miles on it. It was ridiculous. He was a great professor, a little boring, and history. I never found myself sleeping in classes, but I almost fell asleep in that one. History can be boring. I guarantee you, as you look at the book of Acts, you're not going to see boring. I guarantee you, as you look at the book of Acts, you look at how the church started, you are not going to see boring. We've seen it the first 2 weeks of this, where we see Jesus go up to heaven, we see Matthias change, we see these leaders picked, and then we look at this, where the Spirit falls and believers go. Believers do. I want to walk through 4 points today. 4 points, then we'll be done. Here we go. Number 1. God's work. God's work happens on God's schedule. Isn't that frustrating? Have you ever thought about that? Like, God's work happens on God's schedule, not on my schedule. But I'm a really planned person. I don't know who I was talking to this week, but I'm very intricate in my calendaring system. I am organized. I know when things start. I know when they are over. I even budget buffer time. That's how organized I am with my calendaring. Is I budget. I do the meeting, and then I also budget myself a little buffer time. And it's actually not just like a blank space in my calendar. It is literally called buffer time. I'll show you later. I'm weird. I am scheduled out. I am planned out. I don't know if you saw last week, we worked through our vision frame. If you want to see that's on our CityView Next Step website. What that is just CityView's vision for the next 90 days, 2 years, 3 to 5 years, and 10 years. And I love thinking strategically. I love planning. I love all that stuff. And so here's the deal. When you're a strategic thinker or you're a planner, when things don't go according to plan, that's when you're frustrated. That's like when you want to cry. That's when I want to cry. That's when I go in my closet and I'm like, oh, this is terrible. I'm done. But God chooses to do things in his own timing, in his own way. The Bible says this, that God isn't slack or God isn't late concerning his promises. They are at just the right time. Jesus came in the New Testament, the word is, there's 2 words for time. There's chronos and there's kairos. Chronos is chronological time. Boom, boom, boom. Year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. Jesus didn't come at the chronos. Jesus came at the kairos. What's the kairos? The kairos is just the right time, at just the right moment. God does things in his timing, the way he wants to do them, and when he wants to do them. One of my greatest frustrations in this is when I start thinking about, frankly, the salvation of my brother. My brother grew up in church just like I did, and he ran from Jesus. Ran from Jesus and ran hard. Still running hard. And I just keep praying and begging and asking the Lord to draw him, to bring him back. So hard that he didn't even really talk to me for 2 to 3 years. And what's been amazing is over the last several years, as my wife specifically, praise God for Allie, has started to build relationship deeply with him. And Jeff is visiting on a yearly basis now, and we're getting to spend time together. We're getting to talk about who Jesus is and what he's done. He's gotten married. That was a thing we never thought would happen. And now we're getting to share the gospel with both Lindsay and Jeff. Now, there's like, I just want to be clear, there's like no movement so far. All right, there's zero movement at this point with them. It's not happening. But there's opportunity presented. But for a long time, I was just so angry. Like, God, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you fixing this? Why aren't you drawing my son? Brother, why aren't you drawing him to yourself? Why isn't that happening? Why aren't we seeing him come to know Jesus? Isn't it time? Isn't it time? The truth of it is that God works in his time. God's work happens on God's schedule, not yours, not mine. So that can get frustrating, you schedulers, you planners. But this is an opportunity for you to grow in faith, for you to realize I can't control everything. And maybe, just maybe, it's the truth of this situation. I am not in control. That in God's sovereign hand, all things rest. That in God's sovereign hand, that's the way life gets played out. Number 2. I don't know if you noticed this, but as we walk through the text, there's 5 words that are pretty interesting. And number 2 is just this: God's work is amazing. When God does something, it's amazing. When God does something, it's amazing. They said the word bewildered, astonished, perplexed, amazed. They said 5 different words for essentially the same thing. That's the way people perceived the thing that was happening in this text. When God works, God does amazing things. When God works, God does amazing things. This week I had like the coolest week when it came to prayer. We've been doing that 40 days of prayer journal. We just finished it. Congratulations, guys. Some of you guys I had multiple people come to me the last week and say, I have never prayed so consistently in all my life. God taught me things. God showed me things. And that is just the greatest encouragement. So I want you to know today, we're going to do at least another 2 weeks of that. So there's going to go today through 14 days. I can't add that together properly. Weeks are weird. But we're going to do at least 2 weeks of prayer campaign together. It's only going to be text. It's only going to be online. So sorry if you were just a paper person, but you can text pray CVC to 31996. Yes? Did I get it right? Kyle's going to check for me. You should be able to sign up. It'll be everywhere. Don't worry about it. Here's what happened. Throughout the course of this, I started keeping my journal. And in my journal, I started writing, like, I'm praying for healing for Allie. I'm praying for surgery for Allie. We've been in this battle with insurance where we couldn't get this surgery done for her esophagus. Wouldn't happen. They wouldn't approve it. They wouldn't do anything for it. So we were just pretty overwhelmed with it. Like, what are we going to do? God, when are you going to deliver this? How is this going to happen? And I started taking it to the Lord in prayer. Every day, here's what I'm praying for my wife, that you would heal her, that you would give her the surgery she needs, and that the insurance company would begin to see it our way. Same day on Monday, I wrote this in my journal. I wrote, do something miraculous for the Lindleys. Heather and Jason, they've shared their story here where they are working hard to raise money in order to go forward with IVF so that they can have a baby. Like that they've been begging, they've been asking God, they've been seeking to raise money. And so I just God, do something miraculous for the Lindleys. I wrote that down. 2 hours later, Lindley puts in we have a thing called Slack. Slack's like a messaging app that kind of helps. It's like our virtual office. That's how we communicate back and forth to each other. So it's not a text thread or whatever. So we're in Slack, and Lindley puts on there this little blurb. One of the people who's helping us raise money for our IVF treatment, that family, they know somebody in Missouri. Tragically, she has a form of cancer where she has to begin her treatment immediately. but they had just ordered these medicines. The medication costs $10,000 and is the vast majority of the cost for the procedure. They want to give them to you. And they want to give them to us. Lindley said that. And so they did all the checks and balance, figuring out, will they take it? Can we donate? Can we get this? And it all works out. And so in that day, $10,000 out of nowhere that no one expected to happen comes to the Lindleys. And like, unless you're thinking like, oh, Jason, you're a great prayer. I'm going to have you pray for stuff. Like it seems like it's happening, right? Like, no. I'm thankful I got to see it. Finish the story with Allie. We had been praying for this entire time. And on Monday, Allie gets notification from the insurance that the surgery is approved. That it's gonna come through. Then we learned a little weird thing extra, but then the other surgery we're gonna get is approved. Praise God. Like those are gigantic things for us. And on Monday, you could not bring me down because I got to see God answer prayer specifically for people that I love and I care about and who have been broken over the sadness in their life. I just want to make really clear, God does amazing things. We feel like sometimes he's not there or he's not listening. No, he's listening and he answers. It's not always on your schedule. Sometimes God's working something out in you in order to make this more beautiful on the back end. This is a thing we got to see this week. And I want to share it with you. I want you to be excited about it. I want you to know that our God answers prayer. Number 3. People will always scoff at God's work. You see what they said at the end? They heard the crazy big noise. They all gathered together. They all heard them speaking in these languages. And then some of them are like, this is amazing. What does this mean? And then others just hanging out there said, they're drunk. They're drunk. They're drunk. This crazy big thing was happening. Fire over the heads of these people. The low IQs right there, speaking languages they don't know. Inconceivable otherwise. They're drunk. That's it. That's what's going on. When God's doing something, people will scoff. That's just what is going to happen. When God does something, people will scoff. People are going to find every way they possibly can to find a scientific explanation for it, find a reason behind it. It's not the way it works. God works on his timing. God does it according to his schedule, does it amazing. There's always going to be people who are saying, no way. When I shared the vision for CityView Church before we got started, I had multiple pastors say, that's never going to work, Jason. That's never going to work. You're not going to be able to plant churches out of a small church. It's just not going to work. You aren't going to have the money. You're not going to have the backing. You're not going to be able to do those things. I was like, maybe I'm a fool. I feel like God's called us to do this. This morning you saw 2 videos from 2 guys that we planted. We planted 3 others. God did it. Other people scoff. God does it. We put this out. It's in our campaign guide. If you're looking, you want to get a little more information about our campaign. But the churches that CityView has started, we are running over 650 people in those churches on a weekly basis. Like, you're like, that's not huge. You're right, it's not huge, but they're all over the place in Houston. And they're going to be, by God's grace, even more all over the place in Houston. To see this little church that started with 12 people back in 2013, launched in 2014, to see 650 people throughout the course of 5 years in these churches that we've started, that's amazing. It's amazing. People saved, people baptized, families changed because because of what God's doing here. And people will look at it and be like, that's ridiculous. That's crazy. That's ridiculous. That's not really happening. We can point to people. We can point to lives changed. We can point to events and times. We can see what God has done. People will scoff. They always will. God's work's bigger. Number 4. Participating in God's work is better than watching it. Participating in God's work is better than watching it. Think about those two groups of people. You have the disciples. The disciples are there. They're getting Spirit poured on them. They're going to start speaking. They're going to start sharing the gospel. They're doing these amazing things. They're going out. And there's this other group. They're getting to see it. It's pretty awesome. Pretty cool to see. Pretty cool to watch. But I think I'd rather be in that group. That's seeing it happen. That's being part of it happening. That is part and parcel of what the gospel is calling us to do. These people are going out. They're making converts. They're seeing a city changed because of the gospel. They're in the they probably didn't see it then, but those people that day, they're the reason we sit here today. Those people that day, they're the reason we sit here today. Because of what happened there 2,000 years ago. So how do we see God work in our lives? That's always the question that we get. How do we see God work in our lives? I'm gonna ask, if you have your handout, there should be a little little bookmark in there. I don't know if have you ever seen these before, but what we call we call these the gospel touchstones. What's a touchstone? A touchstone in ancient times was a stone where you would rub like a precious piece of gold against it, and the stone would turn a specific color where that precious metal hit it, and that proved the purity of that metal. And so when we talk about how do we see God work, what I want to do is kind of push us back towards the gospel and to look at these gospel touchstones again. This is a thing that's in our regular rhythms. These are things that we talk about frequently. We haven't talked about it in a little while, so I want to bring it back to the surface and say, this is one of the ways that we see God work on a regular basis in our lives. Number 1, gospel. We asked some interesting questions. Ninja star fell. You see the questions up there. The big idea is, have you trusted Jesus? Have you demonstrated through baptism? Have you trusted Jesus? Have you ever said, I am a sinner separated from God and I need Christ? I am a sinner separated from God and I need Jesus. I'm on a reckless destination towards hell and I need Jesus. If you haven't, repent and believe the gospel. And if you have, the next question is this: Have you ever been baptized? Jason, I've never been dunked underwater. Why does that matter? Well, it matters because it's this public declaration of what you believe. We deal with this in our new member class frequently, where people are they come, they're like, I've been baptized as a baby, and I ask this question: did you believe in Jesus when you were a baby? And they're like, no. I say, well, we would say is that's wonderful because your parents loved you and they wanted to raise you inside the church. That matters a lot. They're trying their best to bring you up the best way they know how. But what the Bible reveals to us is something called believer's baptism. And it's not just a little thing that we do, a religious ceremony that we do, but it's a declaration. It's a proclamation that says, I was dead, now I'm alive, not because of me, because of Jesus. And that's why we do baptism. That's why we do, that's literally why we do baptism by immersion in our awesome horse trough. We do it because we're going to put you under the grave, and we're going to say, buried in the likeness of Christ. We're dead. Dead in our sins, dead. Under the ground, dead. That's why we put you underneath the water, declaring that thing. And then we raise you up, and we say you're raised to walk new life in him because now you're alive from the dead. That's why we baptize. That's why we do it that way. That's why it matters so much to us, because what baptism does is it declares, it proclaims, not about ourselves, but about Jesus. I want to bring this up on March 31st. We're going to have our next baptism service. March 31st, we're gonna have our next baptism service. We have two lined up. I'm really excited about both of them, but specifically one of them. My middle son Blaze has come to us and said, I'm ready to get baptized, and we're walking him through we have some curriculum that we walk kids through, and we're walking him through all that stuff right now. But that kid will put me to shame theologically sometimes, put me to shame in terms of my faith sometimes, and he says, I'm ready to declare this thing in front of our church. So if that's where you are, hey, I'm ready to declare who Jesus is and what he's done for me, then March 31st is that day. March 31st is that day. Number two, the next deal is grow. See, what I did is I had a 4-part message, and then I hit an extra 6 parts in it. You guys didn't see it coming, so. Number 2 here is grow. It's important to be a member of a church. It's super important to be a member of a church. You need that. You need to be part of a church. So part of the way you grow is to become part of a church. Well, Jason, I'm coming. I'm part of this thing. I do everything that members do anyway. So what's the difference? Well, what a covenant member is you're going to sign and say, I'm not just going to come here. I'm not just going to be here, but I'm committed here. This is my church. These are my people. This is what I'm going to be a part of. And this is why we take membership seriously here. We have a 2-hour class, and after that 2-hour class, we give you homework. Homework. How many people love homework? Nobody. My son's 2nd grade teacher is here. I know my son does not love homework. Thanks, Mr. Byerly. You got to read a book. You got to write your testimony. You got to come up with 10 people that you're going to pray for who need to know Jesus. There's going to be accountability as a result of you being a member of CityView. Good accountability, loving accountability, kind accountability, but accountability. You got to be part of a church. Are you seeking personal growth in spiritual disciplines? That's one of the ideas behind these prayer days we're having. It's one of the things behind this prayer campaign we've been doing, is that you would grow in spiritual disciplines. Gifts. Do you know your spiritual gift? Are you utilizing it? Do you know what it is? The moment the Spirit came into you, a little gift was sprouted inside of you. And that gift you need to use for God's glory. Maybe it's administration. You don't want to be in front of people. Maybe you want to learn how to preach. Love to teach you. Maybe you're a good leader and you just lead behind the scenes. Whatever it is, God's given you a gift and he wants you to use it for his glory, for his kingdom. Good stewardship. Are you actively giving what God has given to you in order to participate in the gospel work at CityView? This just means we understand our money isn't ours. Our money is God's money. Our money isn't ours. Our money is God's money. My money isn't my money. My money is God's money he's given to me to use for a while. My money isn't mine. My money is his. Group. Are you part of a group that's helping you grow in the gospel? Join a life group, y'all. A lot of you are in one. If you aren't, get one. You need people. You need relationship. If you don't have relationship, you are going to struggle. Just, that's the way it is. Let me say this. CityView Church is not a large church. We average about 150, 160 on a Sunday. 200 people would say, hey, we go to CityView Church. We aren't a big church. But if you only come to CityView Church, a not big church, maybe an everyday church is what you call it. If you only come here on Sunday mornings and you expect that by coming here at 9:30, even if you're right on time, which none of you are, if you're right on time at 9:30, no judgment, we just understand. Even if you come here right at 9:30 and you stay, I'm going to stay till 11. Boom. That is not enough time to get to know anybody inside of a church. Period. Period. You need more time with people. You need to get to know people on a deeper level, on a spiritual basis. And last, go. Are you going? When was the last time you looked at your top 10 list? When was the last time? When was the last time you prayed through that list? When was the last time you knowingly shared the gospel with somebody? God's called us to go. When we put our lives up against these touchstones, that's when we see, are we believing? Well, Jason, I fall short on those things. We all fall short on those things once or twice. We all fall short on those things on a regular basis. But these are things that we need to be actively striving for. in order to see God work in our lives. These are things that he's laid out for us to do. We put it in like 6 easy G's. I don't know. Kenny just came to mind. But our prayer and our hope is that you would be serious about these things, that you would take seriously what it means to grow in the gospel, to see God work in your life.